A group of climate change organisations have
emissions of greenhouse gases.
Climate change is now happening.
Indonesia says it's
10 million tons of.
The Philippines tops a list of countries most susceptible to hazards caused by climate change.
Ito ang dahilan ng pagkakaroon ng mga bagyong gaya ng Super Typhoon Yolanda at Bagyong Ondoy.
This is all wrong.
Let's talk about climate change. People are calling it a crisis of our time, and it is. Climate change is said to be the biggest threat to humanity today. Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress alone. The direct damage caused to health are estimated to be between 8.8 billion ringgit Malaysia and 17.6 billion ringgit per year by 2030. Carbon dioxide, the heat-trapping greenhouse gas, is what contributed to the current global warming, exacerbating the issue of climate change. Now, let's look at this graph from the NASA. These are the levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere over thousands of years. The spike shown at the very end shows a spike in carbon dioxide after Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. We started breaking the carbon dioxide record in 1950, and we haven't stopped since. In the Sustainable Development Goals, climate change is mostly related to Goal 13, which corresponds to climate action, calling for urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. But it is actually intrinsically linked to all 17 other SDG. The WHO states that climate change has an impact on practically every element of our life. The unpredictable change in weather causes crops and produce to be jeopardized, which would result in a shortage of food supply, contradicting Goal 2 in achieving zero hunger. In this video, we'll be answering 5 crucial questions to understand the issue better. Firstly, why is climate change happening? Second, what are the main threats of climate change to the world so far? Thirdly, what happens if we do nothing to stop climate change? Fourth, how does Islam view the issue of climate change? And lastly, what can we do to reduce the effects of climate change based on Islamic teachings? The first question, why is climate change happening? Scientists agree that climate change is mainly caused by human activities, as the world is becoming more and more advanced with various modern technologies that require a high generation of electricity and heat. More fossil fuels are burned, making up a large part of global emissions. Besides, the activity of cutting down forests to create farms or for other reasons also causes emissions. Trees absorb carbon dioxide, and when they are felled, they release the carbon they have stored, and this is responsible for about a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Besides, activities like farming and grazing, digestion by cows and sheep, and energy consumption to run farm equipment or fishing boats are also why food production makes a major contribution to climate change. Our home and use of power, how we move around, and what we eat and how much we throw away all contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. So does the consumption of goods such as clothing, electronics, and plastic. A large chunk of global greenhouse gas emissions is actually linked to private households. That is why our lifestyle have a profound impact on our planet. Now, let's move to the second question. What are the main threats of climate change to the world so far? We are already familiar with common effects of climate change throughout recent decades, such as global warming causing the glaciers to melt, resulting in the rise of the ocean level drastically. However, it is not as simple as we think. Climate change also encompasses extreme weather events that might shake the population of wildlife as their natural habitat is being destroyed. Furthermore, several countries, mainly in the African continent, are encountering food and freshwater crisis as increasing cases of drought each year. Ultimately, affected countries will have numerous health problems, not only due to malnutrition and starvation, but includes breathing unhealthy levels of air pollution. Hence, we will discuss in detail how these effects can harm our planet terribly. First and foremost, the planet is experiencing an extreme rise in temperature. The years 2010 and 2019 were recorded as the warmest decade in history. From this event, mankind will witness the domino effect of natural disasters such as storms, heat wave, and increased amount of drought in some countries, as well as a rise in sea levels and temperature. The rise in temperature of both land and oceans affect the population of wildlife and their natural habitats indirectly. Studies found that wildfire season length and frequency, as well as burn area caused by climate change, has spiked. This also also includes longer summer dry seasons, El Nino phenomenon, and severe drought in some countries. As a result of the rise in ocean temperature and acidification, aquatic life is also in a state of danger. Marine food webs would be corrupted as essential needs for fish and other marine organisms are interrupted by unhealthy reproduction of coral reef. Looking through the lens of economic, the food and freshwater supply crises are also worsening as unexpected natural disasters demolish the economy of affected countries. Natural resource stocks are negatively impacted as hurricanes, flash floods, and droughts could destroy topsoil and reduce soil fertility, which damage agricultural yields. Consequently, climate change is leading to shortage and insecurity of food and fresh water as it destroys natural resources directly or indirectly through economic losses. Moving on to the third question. Have you ever wondered what happens if we do nothing to stop climate change? The fact is that even if we entirely quit producing greenhouse gases starting today, global warming and climate change will still continue to affect future generations. Now, imagine the 21st century draws to a close without action having been taken to prevent climate change. Global temperatures would have risen by over 4 Celsius. In many countries, summer temperatures would persistently stay above 40 Celsius, and heat wave with temperatures as high as 50 Celsius would become more common in tropical countries like Malaysia. Oceans would rise dramatically. After repeated bleaching events, Australia's Great Barrier Reef would be officially declared dead. Besides that, tropical cyclones will become stronger and affect tens of millions of people every year. Mega cyclones like the 2013 Typhoon Haiyan will be common with sustained wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour. Besides, food and water insecurity would also increase around the world, threatening the health and well-being of billions of people, with half of the land devoted to agriculture in the past is now unusable. Despite advances in medical sciences, deaths from tuberculosis, malaria, cholera, diarrhea, and respiratory illnesses would be at their highest levels in human history, and extreme weather events from heat waves and drought to storms and floods would be causing large loss of life and leaving millions of people homeless. This is a nightmare predicted by Mark Muslin, professor of Earth System Science at UCL. A nightmare that would become reality if we were to take no action now. Now, the fourth question. How does Islam view the issue of climate change? Islam is a comprehensive religion that comprises all aspects of life such as politics, economics, and the environment. From the Fiqh perspective, environmental conservation is linked to Fiqh al-Bi'ah, or Fiqh environment, which is a branch of environmental science that is based on Fiqh and constructed within the parameters of Islamic philosophy, as defined by Abdul Rahim. According to Yusuf al-Qaradawi, a Muslim environmentalist scholar, protecting the environment or Hifzu al-Bi'ah is of equal importance level as the 5 maqasid Sharia, like protecting the self, lineage, intellect, religion, and wealth. Hifz al-Bi'ah or protecting the environment should be considered as a means or wasila to achieve the 5 primary maqasid Sharia, that without it, the 5 objectives will not be realized. Besides, protecting and conserving the environment relates to the concept of vicegerency or Khalifah in Islam. God afforded humans with trusteeship over creation. It is our responsibility to take care of nature. Therefore, caring for nature means serving God. Being stewards of God's creation, humans have to carefully manage natural resources like water, as different verses in the Quran warn against their overexploitation and wastage. From this viewpoint, Hussain 2007 suggests climate change appears to be a failure of the assigned trusteeship. Another related principle is the concept of maslahah, or the concept of public interest, which pursues a sustainable achievement of good, welfare, advantages, and benefits of creatures and prioritize the public welfare over individuals' private interests. Relating it to the trait of climate change, this principle implies for us to think and act globally and care for future generations. As such, Muslim thinkers discuss the obligation to preserve resources and care for future humans. While the effects of human activities on Earth's climate to date are irreversible on the timescale of humans alive today, every little bit of avoided future temperature increases results in less warming that would otherwise persist for essentially forever. Realizing the urgency to reduce the effects of climate change, the fifth question arises: what can we do to reduce the effects of climate change based on Islamic teachings? According to the concept of Tasarruf al-Imam ala al-Ra'iyah manutun bil al-Maslahah, the state has the duty and responsibility to preserve the right of its citizens and the natural resources it controls to government policy. Firstly, to keep the air clean, the activity of planting trees should be encouraged to provide great benefits to nature, such as maintaining the freshness of the air and oxygen and reducing global warming. This is where the government should take initiative on this matter. As a government, they ought to begin making plans for environmentally friendly structures like green buildings by encouraging the development of eco-neighborhoods. These structures use as little energy and water as possible and are essential to sustainable urban growth, which aims to prevent climate change. Secondly, in order to preserve water, it is up to us to ensure that we use water responsibly by taking care of it to avoid polluting it and disposing of wastewater in our homes. In another way, business owners must make sure they are also accountable. Governments can work with businesses to set up incentives for them to use resources responsibly and be open about how much water they use. One example of this is the development of laws or voluntary agreements by industry to encourage product transparency and disclosure of water footprint. Governments can interact with their population by educating them about their consumption's water impact and strategies to minimize it. Thirdly, we suggest that a prohibition on destructive behavior is also present, which is associated with efforts to preserve a healthy and natural environment. Everything that disrupts the sustainability and stability of our world and the ecosystem around us constitute a violation of Maqasid Sharia and a sin for those who do it. This may be directly tied to how people like littering, participating in open burning, using excessive amounts of electricity, and engaging in illegal logging. In conclusion, on a larger scale, this issue may be seen as a huge challenge to all countries. However, we must execute the very first step in raising awareness among society. Through proper channels, a lot of people might open their eyes to understanding the importance of this issue. Malaysians and people all over the world need to rethink their daily habits and reduce their carbon footprint. Allah SWT mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 77, "And seek for the blessings Allah has given you in the world to come, keeping in mind that you too have a portion in it. Do good deeds just as Allah has done good deeds for you, and avoid doing harm to the earth. Undoubtedly, Allah detests those who cause trouble." There is no planet B, so let's do our part to take care of Mother Earth.